This is Sovereign Independent Radio on UWS Community Radio and the International Community Radio Network. Breaking the truth.
Hi, this is Sovereign Independent on UNITEDWESTRIKE on 14th May. Myself, Neil Foster, and Dave Darby will be hosting the next 2 hours. First up, we'll have Joe Caulfiel of Turn 180, a anti-green movement, shall we say, in Ireland, who's been attempting to expose the scam of global warming, but who's found that it's a bit more insidious than he first thought, and it's now infiltrated his school, and his children have been indoctrinated into this kind of ideology. After that, we'll have John Anthony Hill of 7/7 Ripple Effect, whose trial went ahead this week, and he was found not guilty by a jury, a 10-2 decision by the jury. So that should be interesting. They actually got to show the whole video in the court, and obviously change some people's minds and maybe start to wake a few people up. And following that, for I think an hour, we'll have Mike Robinson from the UK column, who'll be discussing, amongst other things, the child snatching which is happening in Britain at the moment, the secret family courts, and generally the state of Britain today. Dave, do you want to come in there?
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Hi. I was just explaining Turn 180 there at the start of the programme, and I should explain that I did a bit of work with you when I was living in Ireland on the whole environmental scam of CO2 and global warming, etc. And you've now set up your own website called Turn 180, which is attempting to expose this kind of thing further. And that in your investigations and research, you've come across the fact that it's now become insidious in the education programme, whereby they're now indoctrinating children in the school to believe in this kind of thing, regardless of the actual science or facts of the matter. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Turn 180 and where you're heading with it?
Yeah, well, basically, Turn 180 were a group of global warming skeptics. We were very unorganised, as you know yourself, Neil, here in Ireland, when we had the Greens in government. And they were able to to introduce a carbon tax, which is killing the economy even further now as we speak. It's made it more difficult for elderly people to heat their homes. It's made it more expensive for farmers to produce food, and that feeds into prices for consumers. But we're the only country in Europe now, here in Ireland, Neil, with our own carbon tax. So that's what got us going, really. And we decided to connect the dots and get some people together and do something. And we had some success, I believe. The climate change bill here in Ireland was defeated there in February. And 48 hours later, after it was defeated, the Greens pulled the plug on the government. So we could almost take credit for taking down the government here. But that might be a bit of a stretch because there was other things going on in terms of the economy and that. But in terms of specifically the school system here in Ireland, where we have a primary school system and a secondary, the primary school system is 4 to 12-year-olds, and the secondary school system is 12 to 18-year-olds. Now, climate change is not in the curriculum for the 4 to 12-year-olds. It's not an official part of the curriculum. But what the Greens did when they were in government is they found a way to get it in through the back door. And so what they have now is a green school program. And I have to say, Neil, I endorsed the program on the site of the school itself in terms of litter and recycling and things of that nature, water conservation. It's all good stuff, and I all agree with it. But unfortunately, what they have is a website attached to the program. And on the website, you see that is exactly where they introduce what I would call the demonization of CO2, carbon dioxide, in through the back door. It's conditioning for children, because basically the end product is going to be, between conditioning and indoctrination, the end product is going to be a 12-year-old who believes that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. And as anybody who remembers their own education, it's not a pollutant. It's one of a couple of givers of life on the planet. It converts solar energy into vegetation, and without it we'd be dead. Yeah. The moon has no vegetation, but it gets the same amount of solar energy as the Earth. But the moon has no CO2, so it can't convert any of the energy into vegetation. So basically, Neil, what we're trying to do here in Ireland, and I don't know what our American listeners could do to help us, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the website either edited, which it already has been to a certain extent, or better still, closed down completely, because it's being run by a private organization, and I never gave any private organization. I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. Both of them were coincidentally born in New York. But I never gave any private identity authority to have that kind of access to my children. I approve of the curriculum, naturally enough, but I do not approve of this idea of a private entity having this kind of access in terms of indoctrination and conditioning on my children.
Yeah. You said there was a website attached to that program that's been taught in the schools. Did you find out where that came from?
The website that is attached to the greenschools.ie website, is that what you're referring to, Neil?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's run by another private organization in Denmark, and that's called Funding Environmental Education is the name of it, FEE. And I couldn't track down, I did some research, I couldn't track down where they were being funded from, but I'm assuming that all of this heads all the way back. If you follow the trail, as usual, it all heads back either to the EU or the UN or both. So it's just, as you would say yourself, it's just another step towards totalitarian control. It's basically what it is.
Well, the Soviet Union did the same thing with the children as well, and so did China. They take a generation of children, and basically that is a new society that's going to be created, and they start in the schools. The thing that set your mind racing on this thing was, I think, when your children were kept behind for school. You want to go into that?
There was a couple of things that set my mind racing. I went down to there in April. We enjoyed some nice weather, and I took the kids down for an ice cream. And I saw on the local newspaper there was kids raising a flag, and it looked familiar, but I'd never seen it before. But yet it looked familiar. So I went and found out, and I looked at the flag, and it's very Orwellian in nature. And in terms of what's going on in the schools, they have a very strict litter program where if they get a break from, I think it's 11 to 11:30, and if litter is found on the grounds, they're held in for an extra 5 minutes. In other words, their break time is reduced from 30 minutes to 25 minutes if they find litter on the ground. And this has happened on several occasions. And my 9-year-old daughter Emma has confirmed this, and some of her friends have also confirmed this, that they've been actually held in behind just for 1 or 2 pieces of litter on the ground. It's really quite extreme.
Yeah, those pieces of litter could have blown in off the street. It's not necessarily the children that are throwing it in the playground.
Yeah, well, ironically, just 500 yards down the road, Neil, you have a wooded area where there's people illegally dumping. Ironically, and meanwhile they're punishing kids in school for a wrapper on the ground. It's pretty severe. And I spoke to the principal in relation to that, and he agreed. And they're restricting that now. They're not going to be doing that anymore. So there was, as you can see where this is all heading. They have a flag outside. They have a committee inside the school, and it's basically Green School Program equals Green State. Basically, it's a recruiting program for the Green Party here in Ireland. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, when we were doing our stuff on the climate change bill in Ireland, you went into that and found out that the Green Party had the back door into government in that bill.
Oh, in the bill itself, they had established a series of committees, an advisory board. Basically, it was going to be a government within the government is what they were going to create for themselves, and it would have created a situation, if that bill was passed, they would still be in government, essentially. They would have had statutory powers over transportation, agriculture, industry, everything. It would be a government within the government running things, and actually they would have been able to bring ministers, let's say the Minister for Transportation, for example, if he didn't abide by their
ideology,
rules and regulations, orders, if he didn't, he would be brought to court, the Minister for Transport, for example. It was, but thank God we did defeat that bill. And thank God the climate change bill in the United States was defeated as well.
Yeah. Is there any moves to try and bring that in through the back door of the climate change bill? Because, they need to...
No, it's a lukewarm issue. Because there's so much going on over here with banks and bondholders and the general state of the economy, there's really no appetite for anything else to be dealt with. The other governments are sort of paying attention to the idea of a climate change bill being introduced, but none of them are in any hurry to do it. And that's for one reason only, because thank God we got rid of the Greens. If the Greens were still in there, they would probably be formulating another introduction of another climate change bill.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that Labour was very heavily involved in that as well. So, in some respects, it's still there.
You've got the Labour Party here in Ireland and the Greens they're both Reds, really. They're both communist totalitarians at the back of it all. And so it wouldn't be surprised me if the Labour Party did try to introduce a climate change bill. But we're ready and we're waiting for them. So we'll tear them apart when it comes to that.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Dave here. I think he's got a question for you.
Okay.
Hi, Joe. This is Dave Darby speaking. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave.
There was a point that I'd like to make as well. It's sort of loosely related. It's not directly about climate change. But again, it affects your children. And no doubt you've heard about it. And I'll be honest with you, everyone in Ireland needs to hear about this. It's about a referendum that's going to be taking place sometime by the end of this year. It's actually to create an amendment to the Constitution of Ireland, which will basically take away many of parents' powers to actually decide, what's good for their children. For instance, what they would do, they actually want to insert another article into it. And in a nutshell, what this is going to mean is basically, I'm just actually looking at it now. The state parties shall respect and ensure the rights set forth in the present convention to each child within their jurisdiction without discrimination of any kind, irrespective of the child's or his or her parents or legal guardians' race, colour, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion. It says the state parties shall take all appropriate measures to ensure that the child is protected against all forms of discrimination or punishment on the basis of the status, activities, expressed opinions or benefits of the child's parents, legal guardians or family members. So basically, again, it says in Article 43 of the same convention, it makes it clear that the states that ratify this convention do not answer to parents. So basically, this sort of like is working in tandem with this whole green agenda where, more and more now, the rights are being taken off the parents, so the parents don't have any rights whatsoever to decide, what goes for their children. And right. It seems to me like there is a very, very big agenda going on, and it's a multifaceted agenda, isn't it?
It is, but in other words, if that was to pass, Dave, what you were referring to there, then I wouldn't be able to go down to the school and omit my children from the Green Schools program.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would have literally, once they leave my door in the morning, they're gone and they're in the hands of these, what I would describe as these totalitarians, these Belgian technocrats, Belgian bureaucrats, basically, who are turning Western Europe into, and this is important for the American listeners to hear this, they're basically turning Western Europe into the old Eastern Europe. It's Soviet Union light. It's Moscow light is basically what we're looking at here. Yeah. And thank God for the Americans over there with the right to own guns and with their revolutionary-style politics, because they're next on the agenda as well. This is all spreading. It's part of a global program. It's definitely a part of the UN agenda overall. And I think we've seen Obama trying to introduce elements of it over there, but I think he's been mostly rejected on all grounds. And my message to the American listeners is, please wake up to this, and please help us over here in Western Europe, because we're losing our civil liberties, and liberty in general, our economic liberties, is being stripped away on a monthly basis now at this stage. So if the listeners could go to turn180.ie and help us out, or sovereignindependent.ie and help us out, it'd be greatly appreciated. Yeah.
So the thing is, they use pretexts to do it. I think it was about a year ago where there was a situation in Roscommon in the county that I live, where there was some serious child abuse going on within one particular family, and we knew at the time, what this was all about. Although this particular case was pretty horrific in its own right.
Sexual?
I don't know if you remember this. When we were talking about the fact that they are going to be wanting to change the Constitution because of this. They're going to be using it as a pretext to change the Constitution to make it so that children's, parents don't have any rights anymore. It's going to be easier for the authorities to intervene, to take children off the parents and what have you. And just like clockwork, this has happened. Again, it's the same old problem, reaction, solution that we're seeing here. And now what's happening now, it's working at an exponential rate. And this green agenda and these green schools are all part of the same agenda. We all know that. But we can actually see it all culminating, can't we? And it's a lot to deal with.
It is. It's a lot to deal with for individual citizens, because the average citizen here in Europe, or particularly in Ireland, is just busy at the moment paying bills and putting food on the table. And I'm sure many Americans can relate to it, but that is their greatest strength. Their greatest strength is our weakness.
Yeah.
The fact that we're so busy trying to pay our bills and be honest, hard-working citizens and just trying to earn a crust in the world, that is their greatest strength, is our weakness. And that's why I would say, again, to our American listeners, we were trying to get organised over here in Europe, and we need everybody everywhere to get organised, because America is the country that can make a difference on a global stage. Here in Ireland, we don't have that ability, and many individual European countries, Britain no longer even has that ability. The country that used to rule the world doesn't even have that ability anymore. But thankfully, the United States still does have that ability to make a difference on a global stage. So I'm hoping in the next election in 2012 we'll get some kind of a libertarian, like maybe Rand Paul or somebody like that, to sort all this out, or to begin sorting all this out. Because private citizens, as you say yourself, Dave, we're just not organised enough, and we're just too busy with other things.
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly, it does come down to the individual as well, because while people are being dumbed down, because this is something that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later as well with Neil. I'm pretty much involved in the anti-fluoride campaigning over here, and as you know, Joe, Ireland is probably the only country left in the world, other than maybe the Basque region, where nearly 100% of the water is fluoridated, and we know what fluoride does to people, And at the end of the day, I find it very difficult over here sometimes, because although people are waking up at an exponential rate, there still is an awful lot of apathy, and it's frustrating. You know yourself, when you're trying to get through to somebody, when you're putting the proof on the table for them, and you're saying, look what they are doing to you, and they just can't see through it. There's still a lot of that, and it's very difficult to actually get through to people in that way. And you can actually see their world falling apart around them. It's falling to pieces, and they just cannot see it. They've literally got their heads buried in the sand, and it's very, very, very difficult getting through to them. And while this is the consensus, while this is the status, then the powers that be are just going to get their own way bit by bit.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Dave, because here in Ireland there's a lot of people scratching their heads. Why are we not up in arms? Why are we not out in the streets protesting what is being done to us? Why are the major bondholders not being burnt? Why, when they were originally willing to take a 20% cut, 20 cents on the dollar cut, and nobody has done anything. We seem to be very docile. And I've often had this conversation with Neil when we were creating Turn180.ie originally. I wonder, is this docile demeanour that everybody seems to have, is that the result of something in the water, or is it what's going on?
That's exactly my point.
Well, would being docile be a side effect of fluoride?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not wanting to go into it too much now, it is a side effect of fluoride. It's again, I don't want to go too much into it, because the issue we're dealing with at the moment is the green agenda in the schools. But history shows that fluoride has been used in Nazi concentration camps. It was used in the Soviet Gulag, and basically, it was given to the inmates, basically because it has a dumbing down effect, and because most of our water is fluoridated over here, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the effect that it's actually having on people.
Yeah, but there seems to be something, all right. There seems to be a lot of complacency, and it's very hard. It's very difficult to get people to rally around themselves for their own sake. But then the thing I would say to you, Dave, I'll play devil's advocate for a minute. There's millions of dentists around the world who would say fluoride is it's great for your teeth.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. There's been a few people going around Ireland giving talks about this. Walter Graham is one of them. Paul Connett from the United States, he's another one. And there's been a number of talks going on around Ireland. And there have been some TDs that have been taking some interest in it, you know. So I think we may be getting somewhere as far as that's concerned, because putting fluoride in the water is not an EU directive. So that's something that our government does have the power to do something about. So basically, you know, we, you know, like at least if we can get that thing out of the way, then hopefully people will start.
Yeah, well, as myself and Neil discovered here, we were faced with three different consensuses. Basically, there was a public consensus on global warming that had to be broken down, and there was a media consensus which also needed to be broken down, and then thirdly was the political consensus. So sometimes in these situations, I think what you have to do is, what we found was the power of local radio. There's 19 local radio stations here in Ireland, and myself and Neil went on about 10 of them. And we found that works at ground level. And when you have people on your behalf influenced by you calling the TDs, then you can see things getting done. So I think in terms of fluoride, if you want to break the consensus on fluoride, I would highly recommend mediums like this. But that's going to be another issue in the future, is clamping down on alternative media. I know Obama is not happy about it because his healthcare bill was destroyed on the internet. Yeah. And himself, and I know he's good friends with Zuckerberg there at Google. I think that's going to be another huge issue for the next 10 years, Dave, is internet freedom. The ability for people like ourselves to get out there and tell the truth. Yeah.
Well, I'll just make one last point, because Neil's got a few questions he needs to ask you. But I mean, we've been having some success where Walter Graham, I mean, he had great success in making it so that fluoride was actually banned in the north of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, so to speak. But he's been managing to get onto a lot of mainstream radio stations. He's been on Ocean FM, he's been on Shannonside FM. So, you know, it's not internet radio. He's actually been out on some of the national radio stations. So, you know, this seems to be, we do really seem to be getting somewhere. So that's something that we can say, you know, has been very successful because of the education of the people about it, and also the education of the TDs about it. Because to be quite honest, they don't really know about it, you know. So, you know, I mean, you know, we are winning that one, I think. It does seem we are winning that one.
Could I just come in there?
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yeah. Joe, did you know anything about the CSPE program that's been run in the schools?
What does that stand for, Neil? Sorry.
Community social political education.
No.
Are you there, Simon?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here. Hiya, Joe. Sorry, it's Simon here. Can you hear me there? Yeah.
Yeah. How are you, Simon?
How you doing? Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you. It's just my own daughter, Joe. She does CSPE. It's civic, social, and political education. And I just wanted to throw something at you, because you're going back to talking about the Greens in the schools. I actually have a younger child as well in primary, and she's going through the same thing. And it absolutely, you know, it's crazy. But this is a secondary. My eldest daughter, she's in secondary, and she does CSPE, this civic, social, political.
What age is she?
She's going to be 17. She was doing it in kind of first, second, and third year. But I just wanted to throw something at you that, you know, and absolutely knocked my socks off. And it was in the book. And basically, she came home, and she's pretty aware of what's going on. I've kind of educated her at home about the farce of CO2, and they had the you know, Al's favourite film, The Unbelievable Stupid Truth, was shown to the whole school.
Yeah.
But she came home and she said to me, have a look at this in the CSP book. And it had, now this is like, I thought communism straight away, but it says, you know, a good citizen should not have barbecues because it's bad for the environment. A good citizen should keep noise levels down, you know, because you don't want to disturb your neighbours. A good citizen, if they see a burglar coming out of someone's house, their neighbour's house, should approach and try and apprehend the burglar. This is the type of rubbish that they're putting in the school books over here, and telling the kids. I could not believe it. Like, you know, no barbecues, you know, no loud music, no nothing. You know, it's
no fun.
No fun, exactly. It's a very communistic very communistic kind of way of teaching kids. I just wanted to throw it at you because you were talking about the green schools and that,
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of that now, to be honest with you. I'm not aware of it, but it does sound... I definitely, on the no barbecue thing there, I'm with you 100%. I'm not so sure about the noise or telling a kid to go put their life in danger with an armed burglar. I think the best advice I would give my kids there is to run to a neighbour and tell them to call the guards or something to that effect, or call the police.
That's exactly,
something to that effect.
Yeah, well, you'd get murdered. You know what I mean? Trying to grab on. But look, I just wanted to put it. I'll pass you back on to Neil and
I'll look into
Dave. And yeah, I'll give your contact details. Well, Neil has your contact details. I'll try and dig it out, Joe, and I'll send it on to you. And maybe it's just something to be aware of. Your child is going into secondary.
But a warning to the American listeners, Simon, that this is on its way over there as well.
Oh, absolutely. This whole green movement is being pushed across the world, and it's a very communist idea. And we're kind of lucky that I can sit down with my children and explain the realities of these things before they get programmed in school. And as I said, my eldest daughter came home and was able to point. She knew when she was reading it that this was complete and utter rubbish, Yeah,
well, that's like my son Darren now. He's 12 and he's the only kid in his school because at 12 that's their last year of primary before they move into secondary. He's the only kid in his class that knows the difference between carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. But again, that's only because he lives in the same house as me that he learned that.
Exactly, and this is the problem. If the adults aren't educated properly, if they aren't awake to what's going on, unfortunately the children will get programmed in the schools. Anyway, Joe, thanks for that. I'll pass you back to Neil and Dave there.
All right, Simon.
We've got to head off. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Neil.
Hi. If you look into that CSP programme, and then we'll maybe have you back on next month or the month after, and we'll see what you found out about it and see how shocked you are by it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to come back, and I'll look into it now. It's amazing the things that can go on at the school. All you do is you send your kid to school, and then you pick them up, and you assume that they're being well taken care of and they're being educated.
Yeah, well, I think
it looks more and more increasingly. We're seeing more and more examples of indoctrination and what I would call conditioning for a future type of citizen
society. Yeah, I think it's time parents started actually, taking the responsibility of their children back into their own hands again and going into these schools and saying enough's enough.
And before it's too late, because if you look here in Ireland, for example, we had the Catholic Church had unlimited access to our children here in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 1980s, and it took a mini Holocaust, basically, in terms of physical abuse and sexual abuse before anything was actually done about it. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show you, if you leave things to other people, if parents don't get involved in their kids' education, this is how things can go wrong. Again, this leads me back to the fact that we're so busy making a living and we don't have time to get involved in our kids' education, and that's our weakness is their greatest strength.
Yeah, well, I think as much as there's people in the church who are bad, there's people in the Green Party who are bad, but they're not all bad. And I think the ones in the Green Party who are the true environmentalists who don't want pollution, who don't want our rivers poisoned. I mean, those are the people we need to talk to and persuade that this whole CO2 thing is a farce. Yeah.
I'm a true environmentalist. I'm all for clean rivers and clean lakes, and I'm an enthusiastic recycler, and all that stuff is good. But there's obviously hidden agendas behind some of these things.
Yeah, we're very conscious of the time here, Joe. I think Dave just wants a quick word, and then we'll need to wrap up for this interview, and then we'll talk to you later. I'll put you on to Dave there.
Right. Yeah, just a couple of quick points, Joe. Just on what Simon was saying about the CSPE. There's a friend of mine last year. His daughter was shown the film An Inconvenient Truth 3 times in as many weeks in school. So they really are being brainwashed. But just the last point I want to make, Joe, which may be a little bit encouraging. We were talking a minute ago about people maybe not waking up and what have you. But looking at the stats of the Sovereign Independent website, In actual fact, we're actually getting as many hits as all of the political parties in Ireland. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. We're actually bypassing Sinn Féin. Now, if anything, I'd say that this is testimony that people really are getting fed up of looking to their own political parties. They're going there looking for news, they're looking for answers elsewhere. So if it's any consolation or help to you in any way, if there's anything that you'd like to put out there.
We originally started off as a group of global warming skeptics at turn180.ie, but turning around 180 degrees can be applied to a lot of things. It can be applied to the economy. It can be applied to many things, and we actually have plans in the near future to turn turn180.ie into a political party. It would be something along the lines of a libertarian party, and basically it would be free from the current agendas that the political parties have, which all originate in Brussels anyway. We need something along the lines of a UK independent party, which would be libertarian and EU skeptic, because if we don't see, and there is a vacuum here in Ireland, and we saw that in Finland where there was a vacuum, a political vacuum that wasn't being filled, and a group called the True Finns, I think is what they're called, they did really well in the last Finnish election. So we're anticipating the next election, we're going to do something, and we're going to run candidates.
That's absolutely brilliant. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and any assistance that we can give you as, as an alternative media, then please, don't hesitate to contact us, because this is what we're all about. So listen, Joe, thanks very, very much for coming on and talking to us. It's been very, very interesting, and perhaps, if you've got any updates in the future, we'd love to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Dave, and I would just ask American listeners to pay us a visit there at turn180.ie. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, cheers, Joe. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye then. Bye.
I'm not sure if we're going for a break now or not, but next up I think we have John Anthony Hill, who was in court this week defending himself against Her Majesty's government, as it were. For the horrendous crime of sending a DVD through the post. I think we have John online now, actually. You there, John?
Yes, I'm here, Neil. Nice to talk to you again.
Well, it's nice to see you're free to talk to us again, John. You might be on the long road to 20 years in jail at this stage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, welcome back. You were on last month, and you went through your impending court case and what it was all about. Do you want to fill in the listeners on what actually happened to you this week?
Yeah, okay. On Monday, my challenge to the jurisdiction was heard before the trial itself started on the Tuesday, because the judge, and he must have been handpicked, rejected my challenge. My challenge was in two parts: challenge to Elizabeth's jurisdiction and sovereignty. And what he did was that my challenge was in two parts. First of all was the fact that she was crowned on a fake coronation stone, so was never lawfully crowned. And the second part of my challenge was all the laws that she swore at her coronation ceremony in 1953. She swore to maintain the laws of God to the utmost of her power, and over the last 58 years she has broken her coronation oath thousands and thousands and thousands of times, all of which I put into my challenge, which is online and also which is on the Sovereign Independent. And the judge said that it didn't matter that the stone was a fake stone, because it was only a ceremonial thing, and so she was rightfully the Queen, and so he had jurisdiction and he had the right to put me on trial. So he rejected my challenge, but he never for a moment mentioned the second part of my challenge, which was about the breach of contract, because she has broken a coronation oath thousands and thousands of times. He could not argue. Nobody can argue against that, can argue against me because it's absolutely watertight and bulletproof.
Yeah,
so what he did was he totally ignored it and just ruled on the first part about the stone. He never mentioned the second part at all.
Well, she signed numerous documents, every European treaty and all the rest of it. I mean, she's broken her oath even on that basis. I mean, signing over powers to a foreign state, basically.
That's actually in the law that she swore to uphold. The law that she swore to maintain, God's law, says in it, in chapter 17 of Deuteronomy. It's there on your article, on my website, the article that you printed, saying that is against the law, that she cannot give permission to anybody to rule over us that is not a UK citizen. Yeah.
Well, okay, you kind of suspected this would happen anyway.
Yes, I did. I said they would either have to ignore me or ride roughshod over me.
Yeah, and you did the latter. So you went into court the next day to face the heinous charge of sending a DVD through the post.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
or to put it more realistically for the listeners, I was charged with having sent the truth to a so-called court of justice. What they absolutely don't want in their courts is the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you sent evidence, just to update the listeners. You sent evidence that proved that those who allegedly committed the 7/7 bombings in London couldn't possibly have done it because, I mean, for a start, they couldn't possibly have been there to do it due to the train times, etc., the discrepancies and that. And you actually got to show the full documentary in the court, did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the prosecution showed it for us, which if they hadn't, we would have done. But they actually showed. I mean, they shot themselves in both feet.
Well, why did they think that was a good idea? What did they think what other possible outcome did they think would come out of that other than the truth?
Yeah, well, I think that from their perspective, not perhaps the people in the court, but the people behind them, all right, were doing it as a test to see how effective their brainwashing has been of the British public, and to see whether anybody could shake that brainwashing,
right,
and reverse it. And so it was kind of a test. We brainwashed them into believing our official conspiracy theory and our lies about these 4 young Muslims having carried out this attack. Now let's see if the truth coming in, if this film can shake that brainwashing and undo it, because then that will give them some kind of a measure of their success in the brainwashing and how safe it was for them. And of course, it's proven that if all 12 of the jurors were sort of asleep to what the reality of things is, if none of them had heard about 9/11 and our viewpoint on it, or 7/7 and our viewpoint on it, if they were all asleep, then it showed that at least 10 out of the 12 woke up during that trial.
Yeah, I mean that's quite incredible. That 10 out of 12. I mean, I would have thought that some of them would have thought, oh well, maybe it's right, maybe it's not. But I'm a bit unsure, so I'll say guilty. I thought it would have been closer, but I mean, there's only 12 jurors, and for 10 of them to come out and say you were not guilty is it's not only testament to how clear the information is in the video, but it does show that the brainwashing, whether it ever really took in the first place or not, is starting to crack. And maybe, possibly because you got to explain it in court, people are saying, well, actually, there's people actually trying to expose this kind of thing. And, I always had my doubts, whatever, but here's a chance for me to actually do something, and do the right thing, basically.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, did you defend yourself in that case, or was that the day before?
That was the day before. I had to put forward the challenge to the jurisdiction because the barrister and the solicitor are officers of the court. They have taken an oath to the Queen and all of that. Although privately they have been very, very helpful, very supportive. Right. More so than I thought they might. That they might have, because I'm not very trusting of people in the legal.
Yeah, who is?
So they both turned out to be very nice, very genuine people, and I know that they genuinely, sincerely really like me. Yeah. And they wanted to do their utmost to help me within the constraints they were under, because they're officers of the court. They don't want to lose their jobs, to lose their license to practice and all of that. But they did a fabulous job.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's an encouragement to other barristers to actually take on cases such as yours, where people have been falsely arrested, falsely charged on very, very spurious evidence, and maybe there are barristers out there prepared to now step forward in light of your case. But I mean, sorry, John. The fact that it got in, I think you told me 140 of the kind of local papers. At least, I tried to go through them on the internet, and I mean they were everywhere. I mean, right across the country.
Page after page of links of all the little towns and villages and cities, and I think it was even in the Telegraph and the Guardian, in two nationals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was in the Belfast Telegraph as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
although Jim Core sent me an email saying that it looks like the Belfast Telegraph have pulled it.
Oh, right, okay.
Since you downloaded it and put it up on something independent.
Oh, well, that's good.
I don't know, maybe you could have a look and do a search and see if it's still up at the Belfast Telegraph.
Yeah, I'll have a look later. Yeah. What was I going to say? What are your...
Jim was over the moon as well, But,
of course.
I was found not guilty because he likes me a lot as well, and I like him. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. What are your thoughts as to why it appeared in so many of mainstream media newspapers? I mean, all at the one time. All basically saying the same thing.
I think possibly because they were overconfident, and they thought they were going to find me guilty.
Yeah, but I mean, for that many publications to come out with the story, which is they didn't go into too much detail.
No, but it was a good article. It was.
It was, yeah. It was, yeah.
The only sad thing about it is that they didn't mention the name of the film, so that people could watch it. Yeah. Well, you know what these people are like in the mainstream. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is that those kind of newspapers, I mean, they're bought by, they're bought by just ordinary Joe Soap in the street, and they're usually full of articles about, lost cats and stuff like that. And for something so serious to appear in those kind of publications, I mean, it's quite revealing, really. It's you think, wow, what's going on here? I mean,
it's fabulous. It's really fabulous that
because a lot of those, a lot of those. Sorry, just I suppose for American listeners, I should explain. I don't know if they have them over there, but these are papers that they basically maybe a small town or city has its own little publication about just local events, really. Yeah. And as I was saying to John, that these to get a national story in there. This is quite something, and to get a national story like this in there is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially when you realise that most of these local papers are actually owned by the major newspapers.
Yeah.
And somebody's given permission. Somebody's given permission for that to go out.
Yeah. And it looks like the dam has finally burst. We've actually managed to get the truth into the mainstream media, albeit only on a local level. But the fact that at least 140 local newspapers throughout the United Kingdom have published a story, that's as good as if it was in the tabloids, the national tabloids, because it's got the same coverage. Possibly even more, because local people, they may not like the national dailies and the tabloids and stuff. And they may prefer to buy their own local paper to support their local paper. Yeah,
well, those local publications, they're not They're apolitical. I mean, they're not, people buy the Guardian because they believe in a certain ideology, or they buy the Telegraph because they believe in an opposing ideology or whatever. But these local papers aren't politically to a large extent aren't politically motivated, basically because the stories in them are non-political. Yeah. Although you do something against council stories and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. For who's the next local election, who's going to be voted into.
Yeah. But I mean, these local papers, all carrying the same story right across the country, probably got more coverage than the story would have got if it'd been in one of the tabloids or one of the newspapers, because certain people only buy certain newspapers. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is actually the better way because it's grassroots.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the best way to start the movement. Is what we've all been working for, is to start at the grassroots and let it grow. Rather than we can't start at the top because the top is controlled. The mainstream media is controlled. So, but by starting at grassroots, and that's what the local newspapers are.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. So it also may give an indication of how far the ripple effect has rippled.
Yeah.
Unbeknown to us, because we've no way of measuring it and seeing how far the ripples have gone. And this may be a reflection of just how many people throughout the entire United Kingdom have seen the film. Mm-hmm. For them then to put out these stories in the local news.
I certainly think there'll be a lot more people actually going looking for the film now.
Yeah, it's just a tragedy that they didn't put the name of the film in the article.
Well, they don't want to make it too easy for people, do they?
No, that's true.
I've got a question here. What was the exact wording of your original charge?
Attempting to pervert the course of justice, contrary to common law.
Okay. So you're accused of doing harm.
Yeah. And under common law.
Evidence, yeah.
Yeah, and under common law of all things, because common law, normally, for you to be charged with anything under common law, there has to be a victim.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to have caused that victim harm or loss. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do any of those things.
No. So, I mean, if they wanted to go down the road of common law, then you should never end up in the court in the first place.
Exactly, yeah. But of course, they make up all their own rules all the time, which is why I filed the challenge to her jurisdiction and sovereignty, because all of the legislation that they use is unlawful. It's all fraudulent. They have no right to legislate.
Yeah.
And of course, when they legislate, they always legislate for the benefit of the elite, to enable them to rip us off even more and impoverish, the rest of the people.
Yeah.
Which they've done over centuries.
Okay, I've got Dave wants to come and ask you a question there, so I'll pass you.
Is that our Dave Darby?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, hello, David. Is he there?
Are you there, Dave? No, I think he's gone off for a cup of tea or something.
Oh, right.
No, we'll just can't. There he is.
Oh, hello, Dave.
Hello, John. Yeah, my mic was muted.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to say, first of all, congratulations. We had every faith that you'd make it, and you've done an absolutely brilliant job. You've done some great research into what you were doing. You didn't go there, unresearched, and you looked after things very, very well, very confidently. And we're proud of you. But what I wanted to ask you was, obviously the DVDs and the movie that you've made has gone absolutely, as you know, has gone absolutely viral around the world. Certainly woken up an awful lot of people in the process of doing what you were doing. But you sent some copies to the families of victims.
Yeah.
Have you had any response from any of them? Has anybody given you any response as to how they've reacted? Have you woken up any of them about what's happening, as far as you know?
I'd love to know the answer to that question myself, Dave. I've had nothing back from any of them. They quoted 6 of them in court, and trying to make out that I was a terribly bad person for sending these DVDs to these poor people who had lost their loved ones and causing that I would have caused them distress. They were trying to blacken my character.
Yeah.
But if it was me, I looked at it from the point of view that if it was me, if I had lost a loved one, I would want to know who had done it.
Yeah.
And I would go to the ends of the earth to find out who had done it and make sure that they came to justice, which is basically why I made the film, even though I didn't lose anyone.
Yeah.
I saw that all these other people did. And I wanted the truth to get to them, because if I could get the truth to them, they are the best people to demand an independent public inquiry, which is what I explained in the court.
Yeah.
But I would love to be able to get some feedback from them. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is right, because the whole 9/11 Truth movement, really and truly, was really started by certain members of some of the, certain family members of some of the victims who actually started the 9/11 Truth movement. People wanting answers, people wanting questions, and these were the families of the victims. So really and truly, you weren't doing anything different from that. You were reaching out and you were appealing to the families to look into this. This isn't the way that it looks. This isn't the way that you're being told. Yeah. So I sincerely hope that they do look into it, especially because of the outcome of the case. Hopefully, that will give them confidence that there must be some truth in what you're saying, and hopefully they'll look into it themselves, So all we can do is just hope, really. But certainly, your DVD is an absolutely brilliant DVD, and for listeners out there who haven't seen it, you have to go on Google Video. You can find it on YouTube. 7/7 Ripple Effect. You have to watch it. It's an absolute masterpiece, and all credit goes to John for that. Well done, John. But yeah, basically, what I wanted to say. Now that you're free.
Can I just add some little bits in there? Have we got time?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, okay. On top of showing the film, I managed. I arranged with my barrister to ask me all the right questions, and I managed to get absolutely everything out into that court that I wanted to say. I explained all about 9/11 being an inside job, and about World Trade Center Building Number 7. With the photo of Jane Stanley standing in front of it, Building 7, and saying that it had already come down. And all of that, I managed to get all of that out, and all about 7/7. And the beauty of it now is that all of it has gone down officially in a Crown Court record. Every word that was said in that court was recorded and is part of the transcript of the trial. So what we need to do, and of course it's going to be expensive to do it, but we need to get the transcript of the trial.
Yeah.
Then
Absolutely.
we can see exactly, and people can see exactly the evil of the system and the judge and the prosecution. They were both absolutely evil. And the judge, in his summing up, of course, he's been at this for a very long time, so he did it very, very subtly. But he did everything he could to try to persuade the jury to convict me, without actually using the words, "You must convict this man." They even perverted the definition of the word pervert. Okay, Heath, 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 the word pervert. He said 3 times to the jury that the word pervert meant only to influence. Now, we all know what the real meaning of the word pervert is. It means to divert it from its rightful course.
Yeah.
But he told them that he didn't mean that. It only meant to influence. And so if my film could have influenced the jury in any way, that I was guilty.
Right, so it's changing the meaning of the word.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did it. He emphasised that point 3 times to the jury in his summing up. Yeah. Absolutely evil. I mean, absolutely evil.
Just a quick question for you, John.
Yeah, okay.
You're talking about the judge there. What was his reaction when you were found not guilty?
Well, he wasn't best pleased, let's put it that
way. you would have loved to have taken a photograph, I dare say.
Oh, yeah. And because the courtroom, every day, the public gallery, in fact, it overflowed all over the court. The public gallery was up full to overflowing every day. And when the jury brought in the not guilty verdict, they all burst into clapping and cheering. And they were applauding the jury, which was lovely for the jury to know that not only had they done the right thing, but everybody knew they had. And that they had all the support and love of my supporters.
Yeah, I mean, as I think Roger Hayes says, I mean, the jury should be the most important people in the court, not the judge. The judge is irrelevant.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the jury who decides, and that's it. Without any steering from the judge should have no say in what the jury should or should not decide.
Exactly. Another side of that as well, I don't know if you'll agree with this, is that it should be the jury members that ask the questions.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they've got any doubts, then they should be entitled to ask the questions.
Yeah. But rather than the prosecutor running the case, the complete case, and the jury never get to ask anything, it should be the jury members who quiz the person that's on trial to find out the answers to what they want to know in order to convict or to find not guilty.
Yeah. Just before we go off there, I've just got a question here. Did anybody have a camera or video or anything of the trial, or was that allowed or not?
It's they don't allow recording or photographing within the court.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. I mean, the judge is in disguise. What's he got to worry about?
Yeah, that's true. They must have handpicked him, Neil. They must have
yeah, of course, yeah.
And I would think he's in hot water right now because he failed in what they put him up there to do.
Yeah. Have you any plans to either update Ripple Effect, or are you going to another film?
Everybody and their grandmothers is asking me to do that.
Yeah, well, I was just asked by the Americans here, so I'm asking you.
Yeah, I've already considered that some months ago, and the trial. You're about the 8th or 9th person to ask me that question.
Well, so, I knew that, but I had to ask you.
So it obviously needs to be done, and I am very seriously considering. It's just a case of now getting my life back sorted out and get down to being able to write the script and all the rest of it. But yes, there definitely will be. It'll either be a Ripple Effect 2, or it will be a Ripple Effect Director's Cut or something like that. Yeah. But it will be. I'm not sure whether to, do a Director's Cut and include the first film and then add to it, or whether to leave that as it is and do a number 2 and about the trial and how corrupt the so-called legal system is and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
I definitely will be making one.
Okay, great stuff. I'm very conscious of the time here. We need to kind of
just one last point here quickly. Sometimes when we're trying to wake people up and we're trying to get through this system and prepare for the future, sometimes we can get quite despondent at things, and we can get despondent at people being so people not taking responsibility for their lives and for what's going on, the apathy and that. But there's cases like this, John, where sometimes people can surprise you, and you can, when you look at the jury and the jury using their common sense from what they saw, to an extent it does restore your faith in humanity. It restores your faith in people, and at the end of it, justice was absolutely done, and it was done on the basis of the will of the people, and that's what I can see from what's happened here, John, and it's actually it's very, very encouraging for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm really glad you brought that up. If I could just add to that, for weeks before the actual trial, in fact, really from the beginning, I said that if there are any decent people left in the United Kingdom, there is absolutely no possibility that they could find me guilty unless they handpick the jury of their own people, and tell them that whatever happens, they have to find me guilty. And that didn't happen. It was 12 ordinary people. The 2 that wanted to find me guilty, I think, may have been planted. But it didn't work because 10 of them, the majority, found me not guilty. And it kind of, it's nice because it kind of reassures you and gives you a bit more faith in the fact that it's not too late. We can wake these people up. If all 12 of them were asleep, we woke 10 up that day. During the trial. Well, that's a good percentage.
Yeah.
And if we can do that nationally, we can still do what we want to do. We can get rid of all this corruption and make life better for everybody.
Yeah. Well,
I think basically why I've done that.
Okay. I think on that note we'll finish up. That's a nice positive note to end on. Thanks for coming on again, John. And hopefully when you decide on what movie you're going to bring out, you'll come on and tell us about it.
I certainly will. Yes, and I've been very glad to be on the show and to talk to you again. It's always very nice to talk to both of you. And I hope you both have a good weekend.
Yeah, we'll try our best.
And God bless.
And you too. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Yeah. And enjoy your freedom.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay.
God bless you both.
Take care. Okay. Just like to remind listeners, it's United We Strike weekend. Don't comply, don't buy, stay away from the corporations.